Good afternoon and welcome to United TV. I'm your host, Kamal Arkan. Today is October 18, 2024, and we have a very special guest joining us today. Someone who's not only a friend of mine, but also making history. Sarah McBride, who's running to become United States' first openly transgender congresswoman. A groundbreaking achievement that will make her the landmark figure in the United States. In this episode, we are going to discuss her vision for Delaware, her legislative goals, and the challenges she's prepared to take on in Washington. And I'm honored to have Sarah on this show today. This is your actually fifth time. So we are a big fan of you, but I think you like us too. So it's extremely important for us to have you. And I know every time we needed something or we need someone to be with us on this show, you were there. So how are you doing?
Well, I'm great, and I'm extra great because I'm on with you. I didn't realize it's been 5 times. That's incredible. Well, listen, I love getting to spend time with you, Kamal. You have been, as I have told you before, a friend on this journey with me for a while now, and we always have such good conversations on this show. So I'm thrilled to be back again.
Well, thank you. So you had a great primary campaign. The way that you process everything was good. Now we have I think one person is someone from your team is joining, so I just let them in. So now we have some challenges, but kind of there are certain things I can kind of predict. So. And this was our first time, it was July 16, 2021, when you didn't have any plans of running for Congress. And I had it on the live YouTube saying that you are going to be running for big offices. So it started from there, April 2022, October 22, November 23, and now you are with us. So personally, I think your journey is just starting. Although you have been doing a lot on your personal side, on the politics, your professional life, but I think your journey is just starting. I think we are going to be able to see, well, in a way, I can see maybe the female of Joe Biden's journey, who was around your age, maybe a couple of years older than you were, and maybe that is repeating. But I know you are going to be even more successful than he is. So thank you again. Now let's just have a couple of questions for you, and we can start with those. Now, from this new role, you already know Delaware very well. But there are some more responsibilities with this new role. So what are the biggest opportunities for Delaware at the federal level?
Sure. Well, first off, it's funny. I saw the clip from, I think, our first interview that you recently posted, where you did demonstrate your clairvoyant powers by predicting exactly what has just happened, which is that Lisa Blunt Rochester is running for the Senate and I am running for the United States House of Representatives. You knew it before I knew it, and so I won't question your predictions that you just made moving forward, although I will say I don't know how anyone can be more successful than Joe Biden. He has been, I think, the greatest Delawarean to have lived in the modern era, and I am so grateful for all he has done for Delaware. He was actually younger than me when he got elected to the United States Senate. He was 29. He was about 5 years younger than I am right now, so that's making me feel like I'm behind the curve that Joe Biden blazed. But as you mentioned, I have served in a number of different roles over the last decade and a half, from working for former Governor Jack Markell and our former Attorney General Beau Biden, to working in and with the Obama White House, to serving as the national spokesperson at the Human Rights Campaign, to now, through 2 terms, serving in the Delaware State Senate, representing the district that I'm born and raised in, serving the state I love, including as the chair of the Senate Health and Social Services Committee for the last 4 years. And we've gotten a lot done at the state level. I ran for state office. I ran for the state Senate because I knew there was more we could do at the state level. And over the last 4 years, we've been able to deliver really meaningful progress for Delawareans. I was proud to help champion a $15 minimum wage. I was thrilled to pass my landmark legislation, the Healthy Delaware Families Act, to provide paid family and medical leave for Delaware workers and their families. I was really excited just this past June to pass with unanimous bipartisan support my Protect Medicaid Act of 2024, which will result in the largest ongoing investment in our state's Medicaid program since the Affordable Care Act was passed in 2010. So we've gotten a lot done at the state level. But I decided to run for the U.S. House seat because at the end of the day, I know as someone who has served in state government, someone who has worked at the federal level, that the only way to truly meet the needs of all of our neighbors, the only way to truly grapple with the scope and the scale of the challenges that we face as a state and as a nation, the only way to do that is with federal action and federal investment. But in order to get that federal action and federal investment, we've got to send people to Washington who have what I believe I bring to the table, which is a proven track record of rolling up my sleeves, diving into the details, bringing people together to deliver that real and lasting progress, much of which I just mentioned. And at the federal level, we have an important opportunity to help Delaware grapple with some of the most significant top-of-mind issues that voters across the state talk to me about every single day. And that starts with and really centers on the costs facing families, the costs around housing, around healthcare, around childcare that are simply unsustainable and unbearable for far too many workers across this state. The costs that retirees on fixed incomes are struggling with, the costs that new parents are struggling with, the costs that those in the sandwich generation who are both caring for new children and caring for aging parents all at the same time are facing. And in order to bring down those costs, in order to guarantee affordable childcare for every family in this state, we're going to need federal action. We're going to need federal investment. I want to bring that investment here to Delaware so we can build out our childcare infrastructure and provide quality, affordable early child education for every young person. You know, the housing costs that we're facing are a byproduct of the fact that we simply don't have enough housing stock, affordable quality housing stock here in Delaware and across the country. And the federal government can be an important partner in bringing down those costs by helping to invest in new construction of affordable housing here in Delaware. I want to bring that investment to this state. And then finally, the only way that we're going to be able to bring down the costs facing patients is with federal action on healthcare. Actions like expanding Medicare to include vision, dental, and hearing. Actions at the federal level to help Delaware build the provider pipeline so we have more providers in this state. So whether you live in Wilmington or in Dover or in Georgetown or in any rural areas in those three counties, that you're able to access a quality primary care provider, a quality OBGYN, a quality dentist in your area at low cost. These are necessary next steps for Delaware to be a more attractive state to live, work, and raise a family. These are critical next steps in making the American dream more affordable and accessible. And we need the federal government to step up. And I want to help deliver those policies and that investment to Delaware.
No, that's excellent. So now there are a lot of opportunities, I believe, and Delaware has a lot of potentials. And I know you are aware of most of the issues in the future we may have. And then having you on this seat, to me, it's actually kind of a peace of mind. So I know that there were certain things that I was worried about before the primaries, and I'm still, but you and Lisa being in the, and Chris Coons being in the Senate, I think will be able to deal with those problems. Mostly I'm talking about the legal system. And I mean, I don't want to go into that unless you do, but it's just having right people in the right place probably is kind of hopeful for us. And I know we should be in good shape there. Now, I know healthcare, and then you just mentioned the affordable healthcare, and you are the champion of the paid family leave. And actually, that was our first session was about. So it was 2021. So, you know, what's really nice about these types of interactions, we are able to kind of follow closely what our state officials, federal officials are able to do, and we can actually measure what they do if there's an outcome from what they started, and you did it. So with the paid family leave it's important for society. So it's not just me, you, or them. It's just for our peaceful living together. This is one of those things that we need to be able to provide some of those benefits. And small businesses are always going to be in a disadvantage. And I know this is going to support those individuals through their employers. And being able to do that is great. Now, in terms of the healthcare, now having access to healthcare, as you know, physician shortage is a huge problem with nurse practitioners and physician assistants. I think we are doing a good job getting them on board. Even at United Medical Clinic, we have 3, 4 of them right now, and we utilize them in every different level. But what are the next steps that you think you are able to take to ensure this access is available to everyone?
Sure. Well, I think a couple of things. One is that for far too many people who have health insurance coverage, they still remain underinsured. They still face high premiums, high deductibles, high out-of-pocket costs that make healthcare practically inaccessible for them, even if they have health insurance coverage in a technical fashion, on paper, I should say. And so I think there's a number of steps that we need to take at the federal level to expand access to quality coverage, whether that's a public option on the individual marketplace to increase competition in the individual marketplace, whether that's expanding Medicare to cover the full range of healthcare needs that people have, as I mentioned, expanding it to include vision, dental, and hearing. I'm incredibly passionate about oral healthcare. It's been an issue that I've worked on in the Delaware General Assembly to recruit more dentists to underserved communities here in Delaware. We've actually been able to reopen previously shuttered dental clinics at our federally qualified health centers because of legislation that I passed in 2022 that has now brought in more dentists and brought in those dentists specifically to those high need areas that have allowed those clinics to reopen. And if you're a senior citizen, if you're a person who's relying on Medicare, it is unfortunately unaffordable for many to be able to purchase those plans privately to cover vision, dental, and hearing, or they're forced to choose options that unfortunately provide substandard coverage in other areas of healthcare in order to secure the vision, dental, and hearing. So there's definitely a lot more that we need to do at the federal level in terms of expanding coverage with Medicare, including continuing this president's work to cap the cost of insulin, to extend that to more patients, to continue the cap on out-of-pocket expenses that folks on Medicare have to pay for prescription drugs. We should be continuing to lower that. And I believe that when it comes to building that provider workforce here in Delaware in particular, you know, I helped lead the charge alongside some of my colleagues to implement and improve and expand our state's loan repayment program. I'd like to see us build on that progress at the state and federal level to really help healthcare providers grapple with the burdens of student debt and to make this state more attractive for them to live, work, and raise a family in. But I also think we have to build that pipeline here in Delaware. And I've already started having conversations with healthcare providers, with the universities here in Delaware about the need for a medical school in this state. And I am interested in utilizing a partnership between the federal government, the state government, and private institutions to see what is possible, what is practical, what is feasible, and where we can secure funding to cross some of the initial barriers that have prevented us from being able to establish some kind of medical school here in this state.
I think medical school is the key. Although we have some partnership with Thomas Jefferson,
Yep.
Christiana, and also UPenn with Bay Health System, it's not enough. That's at the residency level, but the medical school itself is one that we definitely need. I've been actually saying this for so many years, but that's one of the things that if it can be done, in your first or second term, that would be excellent, right? So, and it would really help because we have a lot of issues. A lot of physicians are retiring, so that's the. It's not like we don't have enough. There are a lot of people who are coming in from the residency, but a lot of them are retiring, and people are living longer.
Well, and Kamal, I think you've just hit on one of the most important issues that Delaware specifically faces. So nationwide, to your point, we are seeing the pending retirement of so many critical professionals, not just in healthcare, but across our economy. We are going to see a mass retirement in the years ahead. And we're not seeing folks at the beginning of their careers in necessary numbers to fill that void. And that's a national problem. It's a problem here in Delaware. But then on top of that, what Delaware then simultaneously faces, alongside this wave of retirements in healthcare that we will see here in Delaware, is a wave of retirees wonderfully and excitedly moving into Delaware. And so we've got a higher need population coming to Delaware and not the healthcare workforce necessary to care for them. And so we have to do a better job of meeting that population growth that we're seeing among retirees with with growth among young workers and young families, so that we not only have the tax base necessary here in Delaware to fund critical benefits and programs through state government, including our schools, but also so that we have the actual workforce necessary to provide quality, accessible care to that aging population that we are seeing, particularly in the southern part of our state.
So I think there are a lot of things that needs to be done with the state Senate and the House and the federal. And I know Brian Townsend and a couple of the people from his team, his friends, they're actually working with the primary care bills. You are doing the paid family, and then there are more to do with the Medicaid being on an ACO, economic care organization level, and bringing more Medicare Advantage programs into the state through these Medicaid. I think the access is going to be okay, while we just need to take care of the number of providers that we can provide to the system. And from that point, as you know, like United Medical ACO is the only private homegrown clinically integrated network in the state of Delaware. We are providing primary care services for almost 115,000 lives. And, I take my responsibility, my role in this extremely seriously. So I know that working together with you guys on the federal level, at the state level, we should be able to have a good dialogue to come up with solutions.
Absolutely, and it's an ongoing conversation, and I want to really highlight something that you just mentioned around Medicaid, and I touched on this before, because in my first term, paid family and medical leave was a huge priority of mine, because when we're talking about access and cost when it comes to healthcare, we're not just talking about the cost of medication or the cost of seeing a doctor or the cost of health insurance. We're also talking about the financial security and the financial burden that comes with having to take time off work in order to get care or in order to take care of a loved one. That's where that paid family and medical leave program, which will start next year, really comes into play to provide that financial security to folks through those incredibly frightening challenges in life. But then in my second term, one of my big priorities was Senate Bill 13, which was just signed into law by the governor. I mentioned this law, the Protect Medicaid Act of 2024. And Kamal, that legislation, as I mentioned, is going to result in the largest ongoing investment in our state's Medicaid program since the Affordable Care Act, $175 million annually for our Medicaid program to not only be protected for future generations, but enhanced and expanded for current and future generations here in Delaware. We're going to be able to raise reimbursement rates with this funding so that we can make Medicaid a more financially sustainable option for providers to take. We're going to be able to expand coverage to communities and services that don't yet have it, so they do have access to this critical life-saving insurance benefit that already 1 in 4 Delawareans rely on. And so I'm really excited about the progress that we're going to be able to make once that funding starts to come into Delaware.
That's great. Now, speaking of funding, stimulus packages, we always look for those things. Now, my personal position, I try not to expect too much from the government. So as an individual, as a business, we have to be able to do things on our own without being funded. But there is the reality where some businesses needs to be supported. Some areas needs more support than others. So now traditional industry is important, while we want to actually also stimulate the tech-driven growth with innovation. What do you think we can do on that while we are actually supporting innovation? We are not losing the traditional industries, and we are also supporting them. Is there some balance, or do we have to go one way on that?
Well, I love this question because I think this question actually highlights what the future looks like for Delaware and the unique opportunities that Delaware's economy faces in the next several years and several decades. Before I get to the tangible or to the specific question you asked, one thing I do want to say as we're talking about businesses that I'm really excited about is the proposal by Vice President Harris to expand the small business tax deduction from $5,000 to over time $50,000. We know that the current deduction at $5,000 is simply not enough for an entrepreneur to be able to get the capital necessary and have the financial flexibility necessary to start a business. And so I'm very excited about the prospect of helping to incentivize and foster that entrepreneurship, that innovation among small businesses with that proposal that the Vice President has put forward that I hope to be part of a coalition championing in the U.S. House of Representatives. And Delaware's economy in particular is disproportionately made up of small businesses. So things we can do to support small businesses and entrepreneurs with the tax code, I am eager to support to unleash that potential and that innovation. But to your point and your question around tradition versus innovation, I think this is a place where Delaware actually is uniquely positioned, because I don't believe that this is an either or question. I believe that Delaware's longstanding industries, legacy industries here in this state, from innovation around biosciences and life sciences to financial services, those legacy industries are primed for seizing the opportunities before us. Financial services is a great example. The financial sector is a great example. We've got these legacy companies here. We have a long history of really incredible growth within democratizing banking here in Delaware for the nation. And I think the new and emerging technologies, the fintechs that are available, frankly, seizing the opportunities with digital assets, would allow Delaware to harness the legacy traditional industries that we have here with these new emerging technologies. And I think federal investment, but also federal reform to foster innovation with these new technologies and emerging technologies is going to be critical for Delaware to take those legacy industries and help to transform them into the 21st century. And so I'm really excited about what's happening at the University of Delaware around around the FinTech Center that they have on the Star campus. I'd like to see us pass some reforms at the state and federal level that will allow for a little bit more flexibility for those smaller and emerging fintech companies and ideas that we're fostering here in Delaware for them to be able to pursue some really creative ideas to democratize banking. And I think that will not just help those small businesses that are being incubated at that Star campus, but I think it'll also allow for those small businesses to, in some cases, be incorporated into existing legacy institutions like JP Morgan that have really robust presence here. And I think the same is true in the life sciences and the biosciences. The same is true across our economy, that we can continue a legacy and a tradition of leading in life sciences and agri-science, in financial services by unlocking those new technologies here in the first state.
So let me ask you a different question. Did you watch or did you see the House of Cards?
I did, yes.
Okay, so when it came out, I think it was 2016 maybe. So then I actually started watching it again. So if it was a long time ago, you should really do it again. Now, this is kind of related to my next question. So as I'm watching that show, there are a lot of real situations, real cases there, and a lot of complexities, a lot of different egos. And you being the junior, the youngest, one of the youngest, you'll have different challenges there. So how do you plan to navigate those complexities while you are still staying in the values that you promised during the campaign? Do you think they will? Now, I say do you think, but I know it won't happen. But do you feel like you are going to have some unnecessary tension from those people who are more senior to you on both sides? They are going to be jealous of you. That I can tell you that everyone is like, in a good way or a bad way, they're jealous. So I'll tell you that. So even if they're on the Democratic side, they may still be giving you a hard time. So do you anticipate that?
Well, that's a really thoughtful question, and I will say, I think House of Cards is a little bit darker than what DC is. I'm currently rewatching The West Wing, which is a bit of a brighter, more hopeful take on Washington DC and national politics. But look, I think you're not wrong that governing is hard. Legislative bodies are complicated, and there's diversity of thought, there's diversity of interest. There's diversity of interest because of party. There's diversity of interest because of region and geography. There's diversity of interest because there are politicians in a space competing for attention and power. But my approach has always been the same throughout my career, which is to go to any space that I'm in and get to know my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, build personal relationships. 1, 2, never view politics as a zero-sum game. I can, to your point, there's a unique platform, a unique microphone that I will likely have because of one aspect of who I am. In a similar vein to when I got elected to the state Senate, there was a unique microphone and a unique platform for me because of the unique nature of my service there. And what I've always tried to do is to take those microphones, to take those platforms and acknowledge, yes, I am proud of that one aspect of who I am, but it is just one aspect of who I am. And I want to talk to you about the issues that I'm actually hearing from Delawareans, like paid family and medical leave, like childcare, like healthcare, like housing, and to utilize that microphone to lift up the voices of the people that I'm representing, but also to use that microphone to lift up the good work of my colleagues, so that I'm taking the opportunity when I'm given perhaps more opportunity to speak because people are curious what the first trans state senator or the trans member of Congress wants to say, to not only uplift those issues, but to say, look at the great work that my colleague, Senator Kyle Evans-Gay, is doing on childcare and voting rights. Look at the good work that my colleague, Representative Mimi Minor-Brown, is doing on maternal health. Look at the great work that my colleague, Marie Pinckney, is doing on criminal justice reform and making sure we have smarter justice policies in this state. And I think that is not only the right thing to do, because a rising tide lifts all boats, but also I think it helps to foster an environment where my colleagues and I see each other as equals and recognize that we can champion and celebrate each other's work. It's not a zero-sum game. And I think that fosters goodwill between me and my colleagues, as it has in the state Senate. It's helped to, I think, foster an environment where I've been able to deliver on some really big, seemingly intractable issues with the full support of my colleagues in the Democratic caucus. I hope and I believe that will transfer to Congress. A selfless approach that takes whatever opportunity I have and uses it to lift up the voices of others, whether that's my constituents or my colleagues.
So, if they ever give you a hard time, so you need to tell them, You have your big brother here in Delaware, so then I'll come down and beat them up. So, but what they need to know, or maybe they already know. That's why I'm saying that there's a lot of envying. So, I mean, I talk to so many people, trust me on this one. Now, you are not. I mean, you didn't start this 2 years ago. You were a teenager when you worked. Actually, I mean, I don't remember specifics at that time, but we worked together with Jack Markell in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm a couple of years older than you are, of course. So, you were a teenager, right? You were 16?
Probably, yeah, 16, 17, 18. Mm-hmm.
And it never stopped. So, this is a very well established, accomplished person. Yes, you are young, but you cannot apologize for being young. So you are going to do a lot of good work, but I know you are going to also have a lot of challenges. Now, one other thing that I do want to actually add, our first session 3 years ago, 3.5. So kind of towards the end, it got a little bit emotional. So I could see, like I was just watching the other day with Sean. Sean is in the room here. So I was just showing him, like, I almost cried. Like, why? Is because you could have done it in an easier way. And you could just run on that specific agenda and then say, this is who I am, and this is this is how I identify. And you could just, be all over that and then get a lot of attention. And every time we discuss these issues, not like you don't want to be the voice of who you represent, who you are, but I never heard you saying that, here, my agenda is I'm going to run on this transgender issue. You never did that. And that's, I mean, I support you in any way. So personally, politically, no problem. Even if you were running on that agenda, I would still support you. But knowing how level-headed you are with what you want to do, it's not like I'm going to be there for this specific one and I'm going to just, do X, Y, Z. That's not what your seat is going to, it's not going to be expected from that seat. It's going to be, hey, you can represent entire Delaware. And when it's needed, you can actually represent the state and the nation. And that's why I think you are going to be very special for all of us. And now I know you have stuff going on, and I'm going to just ask you very quickly. When President Obama, when he was asked what his legacy was going to be, he said healthcare was his legacy. And now I don't know if I say Obamacare, it shouldn't be negative, right? It's Obamacare. So it was available that it is his legacy. What is your legacy going to be for the future?
Well, it's a hard question to predict the future, but what I know is I don't want my legacy to be about one aspect of who I am or one election that I win. I want my legacy to be about the tangible progress that I make. I want to leave the world a little bit kinder and a little bit fairer than I found it. And to me, at the heart of that is making sure that every person is able to get the care and support that they need through the inevitable challenges of life. Just very briefly, you and I have talked about my experience as a caregiver to my husband, Andy, during his battle with terminal cancer. And throughout that experience, throughout that 1.5 year long journey and course of treatment and eventually finding out that his cancer was terminal and walking him to his passing, throughout all of that, he and I knew how lucky we were. And I do not believe that in a state of neighbors, I do not believe that in the wealthiest, most developed nation on earth, that time and that ability to get care should be a matter of luck. I believe it should be the law of the land. And so my hope is that my legacy will be in building out that care infrastructure. So whether you're facing the challenging joys of welcoming a child into your family or the abject terror of a serious illness, that when you face those hard times, those most inevitable of hard times, that you have a little bit of breathing room and a little bit of support, and that it's not a matter of luck.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much again. I know this is just the beginning, as I said in the beginning. Now, this is the beginning of your journey. You are going to do a lot of good things. We are going to do those. Hopefully, we can be there to support you. You are a great person, and you have done so well, and you are going to be a great congresswoman. And I am, again, proud of you for who you are and what you have done and what you are going to be in the future. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you.
See you again.
Here.
Almost maybe cry again. So Sean is joining us.
And you said the back camera zooming in.
So you need to close the lodging. So that's my phone turn. So while he's turning his camera on, we have other topics today. Time check is 2:37. And there he is. So now I did start discussing, well, what did you think about the session?
I thought it went really well.
Again, I didn't see you crying or anything. Like,
I'm trying to manage.
Like you know, I did get. I had to hold it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
I need to make sure technical things behind the scene stay afloat. But again, I think it went really well. Part of the thing that we mentioned is how willingly Sarah is to join the program. Obviously, anyone campaigning for any position is going to be busy, but part of that campaign is fitting in time to these types of events to actually say, yes, I am going to, be active in the community and really and work along with these people who are ultimately supporting me for this role. So I think it was great she was able to join, and overall, very good session.
Yeah, I agree. So I need to process a little bit because it was, it's when you know the person very well and you want to do the right thing for them, and also knowing that they're going to have a lot of challenges in their new journey, should be fine. Yeah. So now I start talking about the social media and regulations over social media and impact of social media. And there are a couple other people that I'm talking regarding this topic. Now, as you know, one of my advantages in a way, I can see here US very close, and I can also see Turkey very closely. So then, and it's not same. Like what social media is doing here versus there is not the same. It's way more dynamic, not in a good way, like in Turkey. So you and I, we are from two different generations. So I want to actually kind of see someone who is representing the younger generation here, what your take on the media is, and then do you feel like social media is, because to me it's out of control. One of the things that I will lobby for is to have these social media companies to limit the access to individuals with their social security number, and also businesses with one tax ID only, so that you cannot have 200,000 accounts. So
I think there's a bunch of different aspects combining it into this. As we know, social media is just growing exponentially, obviously in the last decade, even since turn of the century. The amount of accounts, like you're saying, whether it's the bot accounts, we know with Twitter, that was a big part of why Elon Musk was actually interested in purchasing Twitter, which is now X, in the first place, was how some of the data or information that was being presented to the public was actually inaccurate, because you found out, 20,000 of these likes were from bot accounts. So there's really not that many people out there supporting this or talking about it. I think in terms of where people get their news nowadays, a lot of people are relying on social media and they're actually just trusting it. I don't think a lot of people have the time to say, let me dig into this further, because most of the time you're looking at it on a smartphone. If you're on your way to work, or maybe as you have breakfast in the morning, you're not going to look at an article, read the headline and say, all right, now let me go research it further and see, is this actually legit? You're kind of just going to take it for face value, what it is. And I think that ease to information is a big aspect on how it's easy to maybe manipulate. You could say with propaganda, I'm saying if we have a bunch of different news sources that all have a similar title saying that this event happened and it's really bad and this person was behind it, if you see it from 6 different ones, you're going to say, oh, that must be credible. However, you don't know that those 6 different ones belong to one overarching umbrella. So I think if you're saying for my generation, the access to it, a lot of people are relying on social media as opposed to like most people, I guess my age, would sit down and watch 6 o'clock news every night. That might be something generations previously did, because they would rely on that to get their news. Even like at newspapers, most people aren't reading newspapers in the column on a train to to work as often. So I think just that accessibility has a big part to it. But again, people aren't actually going to be digging deeper to see who's behind these accounts, what that main agenda is on why these articles are maybe surfacing. And then just one other thing too is I know these websites and apps have the ability to track your data and then personalize your search results to what you are maybe interested in. So we always see that thing where the phone will pick up, like if you searched for a new deep fryer, all of a sudden when you go on to any other app, there will be 50 ads to buy a new deep fryer. Having these custom search results customized to who the user is. So if the program can kind of tell which side you're supporting, it's going to feed you all things on that side that support that and go against the other. Whereas it's not going to be that neutral, independent, here it is, and you can interpret it from your side or the other side. It's kind of just giving that bias, kind of providing you with that confirmation bias of here's everything supporting what you're already thinking. And that's all you're going to see. You're just going to be flooded with this far left or far right. And regardless of what the topic is, again, it doesn't have to be political, but just any topic is going to be really polarized, I think.
So, I think one maybe let me actually try to explain this to you. So in the 90s, when the internet was still new, and as it was progressing, we have E-Trade in the beginning. So what happened with the E-Trade was the tax regulations didn't apply to it in the beginning, because the law doesn't say what it needs to do for the E-Trade. So then government quickly actually updated that, saying that, hey, no, you have to do this. So then they are actually taxing those trade. So as the law we have today, Constitution, it's not going to be enough for everything that every new challenge or development that we have. It's not going to be enough for that. And because of that, I don't think we were able to handle and address the issue of who is driving these messages, who's using them, how are they using them, and when they do, what's the punishment?
Yeah, I think
so. Like this fake account, I'll tell you that we have United Medical Clinic, but they all have tax IDs. The only fake account I have is Elon Musk TR. That's the one that we did it for the Neuralink. So to support Elon Musk that time. This is like 3 years ago, almost 3 years, right? So, but then every other has tax IDs, and I have one account. But if I want it, I can actually multiply accounts on the other side. I can have so many different names and so many different things. And that's why, like, when they say, like in Turkey, they say like there's 60 million social media users. Well, they don't have 60 million social media users. They are actually 60 million maybe accounts, but it may be coming from 50 million people.
Yeah.
So, but I think the danger is when you are able to channel the public attention and public anger and public reaction to certain ideas, certain groups, certain people So this, when you don't have any consequences of the misinformation and multiplying this with so many of these fake accounts, there has to be a stronger, I'm not talking about, limit the freedom of speech. And as you know, I'm a big supporter of freedom of speech, but this is not the freedom of speech. This is actually the reverse. This is like, hey, I'll buy 200,000 accounts and then I'll make your life hell. This is that type of, that's the reverse of freedom of speech. Right? So, and I think, especially in Turkey, I see this, like there's one news and then boom, 200 accounts. And I showed you some of them. So they copy paste, same picture. They don't care what it is. But then I cannot, avoid them. I see them all the time. So, and if I see them, then you are seeing them. Well, someone who's 10 years younger than you they're also seeing them.
Right.
And how do they process it is not like the way you process or the way that I process. So that has to be monitored. And there has to be a bigger, serious consequences if it's misused and if there are fake accounts, and they need to take that under control. Otherwise, just like the whole algorithm, how does it work? Who's going to be pushed? I was watching one of the Turkish journalists, and I showed you his channel. He makes a lot of good videos. His name is Safon Alverde, and he did cover this algorithm issue. And you have to, in order for social YouTube to kind of push you in front of other people, we have to be making stupid stuff. Like I actually just crashed like the eggs on your head, and then that gets a lot of views versus if you talk about serious issues. So that algorithm is pushing them. So and I do believe that we have to have these conversations with our politicians, lawmakers, to educate them in some cases. And also, like, what if people with kids, like much younger kids, how are they dealing with this? Because they have phones and they have access to everything that you have access to and I have access to.
Yeah.
So how do you protect those kids? And you can't say that they don't need to be protected. They do need to be protected, right? So they are not at the point of making decisions on their own. So they are still developing who they are, and yet you are just, I watch some of the Turkish TV shows, and it's on a channel like it's the regular cable channel, and it's so heavy, the mafia, the gun, and killing this, killing that, and then it said the warning is 7 years and older. So that means 8 years can, but you know what it is? They cannot smoke. But the gun is, you can put a gun on someone's head and it will be visible. Someone is training, let's say your friend, how to use a gun. That's visible. You can show that. But this mafia is so well behaved. They don't smoke and so there are so many issues. It's not like The Sopranos. So now here's the thing. If I want to watch something more edgy, I'm going to pay and go to those platforms and watch that. But I want to make sure that this is not available to everyone who can just turn the cable channel on and then boom, like you're 9 years old watching that. And then they're like, oh, what's going on with the, society these days? Well, every individual needs to take their ownership. That you cannot, that's why I was saying earlier, you cannot expect everything from the government. The government is you become the government. So if Sarah is a person, now she's going to be representing people in the government. So government is not a person, doesn't have personality. It's, all these other people who are representing us. So that's why people need to take this more seriously. And then there has to be a better monitoring on fake accounts. And the consequences needs to be much, much heavier. Otherwise, things are going to be out of control.
Yeah, I think I remember back in school, it was like a big push on like cyberbullying, because that was, again, people are just using computers more frequently. Obviously, it's becoming more common. You have different devices, and it was saying, just because you say it behind a screen doesn't mean that you're not responsible. So I think there are different steps being taken in. I know with some of like the streaming services you could have on children's mode where it'll automatically filter out, and, you're gonna have toddlers watching a cartoon about learning how to count, things like that. It wouldn't all of a sudden load up the next video of some, mature content type of show or movie. And I'm sure there are steps being taken, but I think what you're saying is maybe not gonna be able to keep up with how quick modern things are changing, like that exponential, like you're saying, with the amount of accounts you can create. I can have 15 different email addresses and sign up with 15 different. This is also Sean. This is Sean. This is like. So I think it's hard to kind of keep up, but you need to get to that point where you can get in front of it and stop it. Because I think right now there are steps being taken, but it's kind of like behind, or you're trying to catch up. But I'm sure, hopefully in the future, it would be at a point where in real time. Sure.
So I want us to kind of talk about this later on again with other specifics and see what actual law is and how it applies, and where are the gaps. So then actually we can bring the politicians into the discussion to see if they have a good understanding of this. So I think that would be a good one to cover. We have our Bariatric Friday. Dr. Irna is probably in the building, should be in the studio in the next couple of minutes. So we'll start at 3 p.m. We are going to cover the maintaining weight loss after the bariatric surgery. And we'll be back in a couple of minutes. And until then, please take care.